Yo, everybody. Uh, it's another Saturday, and I'm glad to be here with you. I'm glad that we made another week. I'm glad that you made it another week. And so we're here. And so it's that time of the weekend. It is the Love Again podcast with me. I'm glad you're here rocking with me. Glad. And I want to thank you for you all being so supportive, for being faithful to rock with us every week, and your feedback on all the episodes. I'm greatly appreciated. You take your time, and I totally understand how precious time is. And so for you to, if you have some downtime and you add me and this pod to your downtime, I greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. And I don't take that for granted. So thank you again. Um, Another great conversation, another great new friend that I've made that I'm grateful for. I had the opportunity to be on his pod a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we had a really really great conversation. And so here's what I'll say today. This is guess is basically part two to that conversation. He is he has the what the face, right? That's right.
Come on, man. Whatever face on
Whatever face. I
live
was listening to it
broadcast.
today.
What the face? Now I'm changing the name to What the Face. Thank you.
No,
Now it's
I
What
was
the Face.
listening to it today, and I don't know why. I don't know how I got that mixed up. I was listening to the new episode today, so
I'm
forgive me
renaming
for
it
that.
What the Face. I'm
What the
renaming
face,
What the Face.
whatever the. He's a friend that a new friend that I want to introduce you to, and a pleasure to know, and a great mind and a wonderful spirit.
Well, thank you,
And
sir.
he's graced the pod here, the Love Again podcast, for the very first time. Hopefully, not the last time.
That's
My
all
friend.
on you, sir. I'm here whenever you need me, but that's all on
Well,
you.
I appreciate it. I do. We're gonna work it out. Don't worry about it. Corey Reed, everybody. Corey, how are you?
I'm great, but I wanted to start off with this grown man bars. Something you're gonna have to deal with, Pat. All them
Grown man.
fabricated,
Yeah.
collaborated lines
Uh
ain't
huh.
gonna equal up to this root. Nah, I just had to. Sorry, that was my I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I can't complain. You know what? There's a million little things that you wish could be different, and stuff that's not going the way you want them to be, but you have to remember to breathe deeply and
Yeah,
to remember that everything's going to work out. It's going to be fine. So, no complaints. You're in your car.
I
Um,
feel like I wanted to give you the full New York experience. Everybody
yeah,
else gives you decor. I'm
right.
giving you scaffolding and fake Maybach esque
I,
look.
I
So
get it. Which part of New York are you in?
I am in Harlem at the
Okay.
moment, but I'm
No,
born and
okay. You
raised in
can't say. I
Brooklyn.
don't want you to give away your
I am in
location.
Harlem. No, I'm in Harlem. I'm in Harlem. Let the folks know I'm in Harlem. I'm in Harlem.
Oh, my bad. That is just
No. I ain't hiding from nobody. I hope my ops ain't looking for me. I'm in Harlem. But yeah,
okay. Okay, Harlem. Yeah. No. I've spent some time in Harlem. Harlem's a cool space. So here's where I want to start, where I think I like to always start. Um, if I asked you your origin story and your beginnings, like what would that story be, and who are some of the most significant people in that story for you?
oh man, I hear you ask this question every week, and I think about a profound answer for the time that I am
Hmm.
invited up here. So this is what I got. My parents were killed in the alley by my arch nemesis. I was bit by a.
No, go ahead. No, please finish the story. I got now. I got to
Yeah,
hear it. Now I got to
yeah.
hear it now.
My parents, when I was young, were killed by my arch nemesis in the back alley. And while I was waiting for some help, I was bit by a radioactive spider.
Hmm.
And um, on my way to the orphanage, I had gotten in contact with some gamma rays, and um, I guess those people would be Commissioner Gordon and my.
It's your story. It's your story. Yeah, go right
It's my
ahead.
story.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah, seriously though, my origin story. Born and raised in Brooklyn, spent majority of my life between Queens and Brooklyn.
Mhm.
My I say spent majority of my life because my parents lived in Queens, but I stayed in Brooklyn with my godmother more than I stayed in Queens with my parents. So um, I in that origin, you got my mom, you got my dad, you got my brother, and my cousin and my godbrother. It's the four of us that we called ourselves. Now this is really true. We called ourselves the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because we fell in love with it, and it was us four. We hung out together, went to school together, went to church together. It was us four. But my godmother is where I spent majority of my time. So they lived across the street from the church and the school. So we would go from school to their house. We would go
Mhm.
from church to their house. Um, but yeah, that would be the origin of who I am. I wish there was more to get into, but
No,
that's
no,
what I
no, no.
got.
That's a
PK.
yeah. A preacher's kid. Okay.
Yeah,
Um. So let's start here because people are from New York are a specific type of person.
yeah,
And then more specifically, every borough in New York is different and like
sure
has
is.
its own culture. So somebody who grew up in Brooklyn is very different from someone who grew up in the Bronx or
Very much.
uh, or Queens or whatever. So I'm interested in what life was like, and I think you and I are close in age, a little
Yeah.
bit. What was life like where you were in a space where hip hop is emerging and like it would be a dominant force probably by the time you're 10, 12 years old? And also, and not to say, because this was everywhere, not to say this is specific to Harlem, but the crack game, the drug trade. Um, what was what was what was growing up in that space like for you?
So where I grew up, I want to say the block was very quiet and respected the church. Everybody who was a church goer, the neighbors knew the church, they knew the church members. There was a corner store, and growing up, I always saw it on TV. I'm gonna get to your hip hop point, but this speaks to it. I saw this on TV and movies. So there was this corner store, and my mother tells me this. My mother used to tell me the story all the time. I would go in the store, and I would come back out with a bunch of stuff, and she would always be like, "Well, where's he getting money from? Because he's not asking me for money to get this stuff." So one day she comes in the store with me, and I grab a bag of chips and I walk out. And she goes, "Wait, wait, wait. You didn't pay for it." And then the store owner goes, "No, every time he comes in there, he just tells me to put it on his tab and he walks out." So he grabs it and he just walks out. I don't know at what age that I thought I had a running tab, but I told him, "Hey, put this on my tab," and I'd walk out. And she was like, "Well, how much does he owe you?" And the guy was like, "Don't worry about it. Like, he comes in here all the time and we know him as a regular, but don't worry about it. We think it's funny actually that he thinks that there's a tab that at 6 or 7 years old that he could pay money on later on. But
Right.
every time he comes in there, he grabs a bag of chips, a honey
Mhm.
bun, and he says, "Put this on my tab." And but the block itself was very, very quiet. Everybody respected the people that was in church. I didn't necessarily get into hip hop until I was at my godbrother's house, and there I saw the Word Up magazine posters. I saw him. Slam of the Month posters. And if you remember, Video Music Box was
Absolutely.
where like
Absolutely.
uh,
Yeah.
I got my first glimpse of what hip hop was. I remember um, Method Man and Mary J. Y'all I need, but also I remember Cream, and I always used to say, "Wait, Method Man's in Wu Tang," and vice versa, because I wasn't really a Wu fan like
Right.
that. But
Right.
I could distinctly point him out from "You're All That I Need," and then when Cream came on, I'm like, "That's the same guy? Is he doing
Right.
like a feature?" So that was
Right.
like my introduction into um, hip hop. But then I started listening to your Biggies, your Jay Z's, because I was like, well, what is this you're listening to, and what other artists can you tell me about? But yeah, my god brother was basically is right smack dab in the middle of Bed-Stuy. Bed-Stuy, do or die, up the street from where Biggie Small's house was, St. James and Lafayette.
Mhm. Oh, okay. I just want to say to everybody that this is what happens when you have an unstable Wi-Fi connection. Because I think I missed the last 15 to 18 seconds of what you said there.
All right. What was the last thing you heard?
uh,
You
I
gonna make it?
don't
You gonna lie
remember,
now?
but let's
You
not.
gonna
I
lie
know
now?
because
You gonna lie now?
I was no, I was so waiting for it to clear up that I wasn't. I don't remember what you
Now
said
you gonna
there.
lie? I was saying, I was saying, I got my start from hip hop from my god brother, and I was making a point.
Marion Meth, and then you found Biggie and Jay, and
Right.
then
And I was saying it doesn't get more hip hop where my uncle lives. My uncle
there
lives
it
on
is.
St. James and Lafayette.
Okay,
And St.
that
James
part.
and
Go with that
Lafayette,
part where
yeah,
your uncle lived. Yeah.
yeah. St. James and Lafayette is basically a block away from where Biggie Smalls lives.
Mm,
So you don't get much more culture than
right.
having that sort of cloth
Right.
you're
Right.
connected to.
So you like myself, we were church kids.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested in what church life was like for you as a kid. I grew up Pentecostal. I don't know what your upbringing or what tribe you were from, but it shapes us. It shapes us. It definitely shapes us. Sometimes it could bruise us, right?
Right.
I'm interested in how you experienced that for yourself as a kid.
Um, to be honest with you, I grew up Pentecostal as well.
Mhm.
Sheltered from a lot of stuff. I was sheltered from a lot of stuff. As a PK, they say, we're the worst ones. You get caught smoking a cigarette, we got to get caught smoking weed or, doing something of the sense. But I was kind of sheltered from, I want to say, what most would consider church hurt. My
Mhm.
parents didn't have conversations about the church around me and my brother. Um, it was only when I grew up and like heard different people's stories, and I'm like, wait, what? Did I realize like stuff like that was actually happening? But from my recollection, church was a place that I spent 32 hours a day and then went to school because the school and church were in the same building. Went to school, yeah, it was in the same building. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I get
school
it.
was upstairs, church was downstairs. So we would go to school,
Hmm.
go to church, and it was
Hmm.
it, it was like that's all we knew. Our whole life was school and church.
Hmm.
Sunday morning service. It was supposed to be two services. Morning service would bleed in the afternoon service, and we would be sleep under the pews on a
Hmm.
pile of coats.
Hmm.
So Yeah, I haven't necessarily experienced hurt that
Yeah,
others may have experienced at the hands of the church.
yeah. Um, I understand living in that space because I tell everybody I thought school was somewhere you went in between going to church. Like it just seemed like we go to church, then they drop us off at school, and then they pick us up,
And go
and
back
then
to
we
church.
go back to church. Like I thought that, or choir rehearsal, or whatever. It was
Yeah.
always revolving around church in some ways, and that could be a very insular environment, right? That um, you think this is the whole world because all of
Yeah.
your friends are here, all of
Yeah.
your play cousins are here, your aunts and people who look after you are here, and it becomes a bubble.
Hmm.
Um, at what age did you realize there's something outside of this bubble that is interesting to me, and I want to go explore that? And did that cause you tension? Um, because here's an example. So like I didn't go to my first club till I was like 18, 19 years old. And all of my friends,
You heathen.
they- yeah, they had been, going to clubs long before sneaking into clubs and all of that. And like I didn't know how to dress. So when I showed up in my church clothes cuz that's what you did when you went somewhere. You dressed up. All we
Yeah.
did, that was what we did, and they kind of was like looked at me like, okay, all right. I know they talked about me, which is now I talk about me, but I didn't know this like was a different world, and my people didn't do this like we were church people, so it was like, well, this is really fascinating. And I found some tension in being interested in it and being interested to the people that were there, and then going back into my comfort zone, like where I kind of grew up. So it was some tension there. Did you find the same tension?
So for me, we lived in like I said, Brooklyn, Queens until I was in the sixth grade. So when sixth grade, we had moved upstate to Rockland County. And it wasn't until then that it was like, whoa. Because now I'm moving away. Like you said, my friends and family, everybody that I know is here in Brooklyn. I go to church with these people. Um, I go to school with these people. Now I'm completely being uprooted from that. And now I'm going to a different place, different school. So that's when things like got opened for me outside of my god brother's initial influence. Now I'm in a school where people are cursing. People are as a school year has progressed, people are getting into fights. You get older, people are like high school pregnancy was a thing. So now I'm exposed to this stuff. I'm exposed to um, other rappers because I only have my ears what I'm listening to in my little bubble. Now I'm in a different space and I'm hearing people talk about a big pun. I'm hearing people. One of my good friends from middle school was a Wu Tang fanatic. I didn't really get into Wu Tang until I met him, and he used to draw the Wu symbol and everything. And I didn't go to my first club till I was 21. The PK. Listen to this story. On my 21st birthday, me and my sister devised a plan where we would take a limo to a club. We would go bowling first, and then from bowling was a disguise. We would tell our parents, "Hey, we're gonna go bowling. We rented a limo. It's gonna take us bowling. Then it's gonna take us to this fancy restaurant to eat." That was a disguise. Stupid me told the whole youth department about my birthday plan, so it was a Friday night service. Yeah, no, no, no. It gets worse. Friday night service. We all leave Friday night service. Go to bowling. That was the plan. But we knew we were going to the club after bowling. My father says, before I leave the church, he goes, "So what's the plan again?" "Oh, yeah, we're gonna go bowling here and just gonna take us out to eat." "Are you sure?" I should have knew at the "Are you sure" that he knew something was up. And I'm out here, so I gotta stick to it. Yeah, yeah, bowling and then something to eat. He goes, "Okay." Whole youth department might have been 12, 13 people with me and my sister. We go to this club because I knew a promoter. Go to this club. He gives us all drinking tickets. Hey, you know, drink on me. We're in the club having a great time. But the whole time now I'm paranoid because I'm like, do I drink? Do I not drink? I got my church friends here, but how do I really enjoy this environment with them? I'm used to my friends at school. I can enjoy it here. I know they may have their own lives and maybe enjoy it on their own, but how do we enjoy it together? With now my father's words in my head, like, are you sure? So now this is playing in my head the entire time. One of the girls gets drunk, like white girl wasted, and she throws up in a limousine. Yeah. So I'm gonna fast forward the story to about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We drop everybody off, and we're like, let's go get something to eat. So the fine restaurant that we ended up going to was IHOP at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Friday night.
IHOP is my happy place, but go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, it was a happy place for us too. And as we recalled how drunk this girl got, we were all like, "So what's the story? What do we tell everybody?" And we all was like, "The story is she's the only one that drank." Because
Mhm.
that's the God's honest truth. She's the only one that drank. We didn't go out here to drink. We came out just to have a good time. Saturday morning, make a long story less long. Saturday morning, my father wakes up. He goes, "So how was the club?" And now I'm like, there was a mole. Somebody told him. And he goes, "No, I could have told you your plans at the church when I asked you what you were doing. I knew you were going to a club." He said, "I could tell you the address of the place you were going, but I wanted to see if you were going to tell me."
Mhm.
But that was my first club experience, 21,
Well, that's
as a big kid.
interesting. It's interesting that he didn't stop you, right? Like he could have blew up the whole night if he knew, but he let you have that, right? Um, which is an interesting. When I look back over my shoulder, my father is he passed away a little while
Mine too.
ago. Yeah, and there were moments that I look back during our relationship where I was growing up, right? And he kind of let me buck a little bit, right? And didn't hold it against me. Um, I remember one time, I have no idea what happened. I had to be about 19, 20, so that's a very, very awkward space for a young man. Like I want to spend more time at the house and I don't want to be, answering, all questions. It's just very, very awkward. And we got into an argument, and I maybe one or two times in my whole life that this happened, but it got into an argument, some tension about something. And, I was raised to respect my parents. It wasn't like we were cussing. It was just like we had a thing. He raised his voice, I raised my voice. And the only thing I could do at the time was grab my bag and walk out the door. Like that was that was my only act of defiance. That's all I didn't have a car. I didn't have nothing. So I was just grab my bag. I'm leaving out the house. And he let me, right? He let me. And I think, maybe the next day or something like that, we kind of acted like, nothing had happened. Like it was like, okay, that was a moment. and let's move on. And I really appreciate that he didn't make a mountain out of a molehill, right? That perhaps he knew that these were the things that I was feeling or whatever, and he just let me have that and let me experience whatever that was going to experience, and love me anyway, and continued to be, my father, which was just it was just like this really powerful moment as I reflect on it. And it sounds like something like that for you, because he could have came down very hard. Like it could have it could have been a thing.
No, it was a thing. He preached on me that Sunday morning.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah, he preached on me that Sunday morning. But
yeah.
he gave me the space. They would always, my parents knew their kids. They knew if they went away, leave my older brother Charles, leave him in charge. Charles in charge.
Charles and Charles.
Leave him in charge, because if you leave Corey to himself, he will throw a party. He will have people all over the house. So he needs some sort of supervision to make sure that he doesn't go off the deep end.
Mhm.
But people in the church knew me as, when I went to my aunt's job one time, I was introduced when she was introducing me. One of her coworkers goes, "Oh, this is the PK that quotes Jay-Z lyrics," and I was just like, "Yeah," but everybody knew, like people knew I wasn't gonna go crazy,
Mhm.
but I was the one that people should be concerned about, like in terms of behavior or doing anything. My
So it
brother,
needed a little more prayer, just a little
yeah,
more
I
oil,
was the
just a
one
little
that just,
more.
yeah,
Yeah, right,
just a
right.
little more.
Yeah.
Um, but he let me have that. I remember a conversation me and my father had where it was about being in his shadow and having the last name Reed.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I don't want to be Bishop Reed. I want to be Corey.
Mhm.
And he told me, you can't run from your last name. As much as you're trying to distance yourself as your own individual, that's fine. But you can't run from your last name. Like, I'm sorry, you want to be your own person and think that that's a separate thing from being my son. You can be your own person, but your last name is still attached to me. So
Mhm.
even though you want to be your own person, that's great. Just know, because of your last name, you kind of got but so much rope.
Mhm.
But he let me experience life. I want to say, um, didn't necessarily tell me how to live my life. He just lived his and let me watch it. Let me
Mhm.
make all the mistakes that I wanted to make. And outside of preaching on me that one time, he was very open to conversation with me. It was, yeah.
So, because we had a church upbringing and we kind of nurtured in that environment, we spent a lot of time there, and we learn whatever we learn about life, faith, love. We perhaps learned it in this environment. And one of the questions I always ask my guests is, who first taught you about love, um, and was that intentional? In that, did they actually have a conversation and say, well, this is what love is, this is what love isn't, or did you have to learn it through observation and then find your own language, um, for it? And let me add this too for you specifically, because we grew up in church, so I know we have, the love of God, and they told us about that. I'm not talking about God's love. I'm talking about love that we have for our families, and ultimately, with, our relationships and our interpersonal romantic relationships, and now even like with your kids. Like, where did you get that from?
Um, I came up here to be silly. So let me just say that outright. I came up here to be silly.
Go right ahead.
No, but I learned love through observation.
Mhm.
At first, it was my parents. Um, when when me and my brother became of age to give like speeches for my father for like Father's Day or his birthday, I remember I got up and it was, Dad, thank you for all the stuff you taught me and blah 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 blah. And I said, yeah, like your favorite word, crap, because you always say, get this crap up off the floor, or get like pick this crap up, or move this crap over here. And he bust out laughing because he thought it was going to be some sincere thing about how much I adore and admonish him and all that other stuff. But I learned through observation with what he did for us. My father worked in the church, seemed like 24/7. He would send me and my brother with my mother. And I used to always, because we went with her to the nail salon, we went with her to get her hair done, we went with her to the museum. And I said to them one day, I'm like, well, why are we always with mommy? And he said, because when I'm not around, you and your brother are supposed to protect her. That was the first instance of, oh, okay. So you're not just forcing us to go with her so you can just be in church. I learned my father's love language was gift giving. Not necessarily that he wanted to receive, but his love language was gift giving. My mother didn't ask for anything, and she got the world basically. That was the first model for me that I saw was if you're in love with someone, it's nice to do for them. And it was never brought up or it was never held against her. Hey, well, I did this for you. Well, I'm paying this and I'm doing it. He never mentioned any of that. It was just like, I'm doing it. I don't expect uh, a grand acknowledgement in the newspaper that I'm doing. I'm just doing it. So that was one side of love. And then my aunt and uncle was another side. My aunt and uncle was the physicality. My uncle would slap my aunt's butt all the time. And as kids, he'd be like, could y'all go somewhere? He would kiss her all the time. Come here, girl. Like, and it was like, okay, so this is affection.
Mhm.
My father showing me this is how you treat your family, your wife, blah, 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 blah. And my uncle, when I'm looking at him, I'm looking at, oh, so this is affection. This is how you show that you're physically um, still loving on or in love with your partner is by these actions. Um, Combine the two, and I think that's what kind of shaped that and how to be a player. Kind of helped shaped my girl.
Out
It
of
kind of
all the
helped shape.
movies, it had to be
I
how
had
to
to
be
be
a
a player. No, but those two things help like shaped my, oh, you, this is how you do and you treat, and this is how you interact when you're in love. And I combined those two and kind of like tinkered with what I thought I knew about both in my
yeah.
relationships.
I can identify with all of that. Um, Very much so. Like you piece together for yourself as a young man, a teenager trying to, discover how to get some girl's attention and affection, and what this is how you treat them. This is what you do. And so for you, it was your with your dad. It was provider.
Hmm.
That provider protector. With your aunt and uncle, it was physical touch. The issue is that we get into relationships and the women in our lives want us to talk.
Yeah.
They want they want you to, what is it? What talk, dude? How many times do you want me to say it? How many times do you need to hear it? Like, what do you mean? Yes, of course I love you. What do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, I
Yeah.
told you, and it becomes very frustrating because we could get in the rhythm to know, okay, this is what a man does. He buys things, he provides, whatever. This is what a man does. He touches, he's physically engaged, and he's affectionate with his woman. But then we get into relationships, and our women ask us for something that, right by default, we don't have. And it's very
Yeah.
frustrating, which is language. And not just language, the ability to be free enough to say it, because sometimes we have it, we think it,
Yeah.
we can even feel it, we don't say it, right?
Right.
So did you have that tension there, that when you got in your relationships they wanted you to be more verbal with it, and did you find that as uncomfortable at the time as I did?
Patrick, I used to be called the Tin Man because like emotions were just like non-existent. Like talk, we mean talk. Like, we ain't talk. I am just now discovering that I had emotional buildup for years
Mhm.
in relationships that like now it's like, oh, that's what that was. You wanted me to be verbal and I wasn't. I thought you were reading my mental clues or my annoyance in my face or picking up on my body language. I didn't know that you needed me to be like, hey, look, this is bothering me. Or, hey, look, when you did this, it upset me. I didn't learn that till now, that that's a thing, an ongoing thing. I was just, hey, physical touch and gift giving. That's all you're gonna need to be happy. That's what I tinkering.
Yeah.
Trying to find the right mixture of everything to get what I thought was love. Um, but yeah, I didn't learn that lesson till recently. It was something that I struggled with.
And it's unfortunate, because here's the tension, that they could be absolutely right. We do need to be able to express verbally with language. Like, that is how we connect towards one another. It is more than just gift giving and physical touch, even
Yeah,
though primarily that's what we were taught. Like, it's not, sometimes it's not that I don't want to, it's that I don't know how to,
yep,
right? And you're asking me to do something that I don't know how to do, which makes me insecure. And then when I do it, I might not be that good at it. And then you point that out and penalize me for it. And then I'm like, well, ain't no sense to me.
I ain't doing that again.
Right, right. So what you want, you end up pushing me further away
Yeah,
because you're so punitive with it. Here's the balance to that. The balance to that is, on the other side, if you would have your issues worked out, then perhaps you wouldn't be so needy, right? For me to say to you what the man who raised you or didn't raise you did not give you, right? And so in some ways you want me to play this daddy role, and um that could be problematic,
yeah,
right? Because we don't I didn't marry someone or be with someone to raise them and to be their father. Like, I want you to to be as mature as you need to be, so we don't bring all of our needs and have our needs weigh us down. And so, like, it seems like we both come with some deficits and
100%.
some legit needs. The other issue that you and I suppose have, it's not just that they need to hear it, but we don't grow in love until we're able to say it, right? Not just say words of affection for you, but to verbalize what I need. I grew up, very early on, around my 20s. I had different mentors, and I was asking them about marriage, is what is that like, and da 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 da. And he said to me, and I remember this, he says, when it comes to issues, I don't bring it up if she don't bring it up.
Hmm.
Like, his survival mode was, I could be unhappy, but I'm not going to talk about it until it becomes an issue for her.
Mm.
And while I thought that was a great tactic, what I did learn is from that over some time was like, well, um if you got me,
I'm here.
there I am.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
The more I don't say in my relationships, you think everything is fine and you think I'm happy. And my silence may be lying to you, giving you signals that everything is all right.
Yeah.
And it's not all right. And I don't, and by the time we start talking, by the time I say
Just
what I have been holding on to all this time,
yeah. Now it's like I'm attacking you.
yeah, like it's like a nuclear explosion. Like
Yeah.
just everything is ravaged in the way. And it's like I had to learn to that my what I'm feeling is just as important as what you're feeling.
Yeah.
And I need my acknowledgments because sometimes when we don't say anything, women can get this idea that they're great in relationships because their man doesn't complain or he doesn't say anything. And that's not true. Sometimes the relationship is horrible. He just doesn't want to talk about it. That doesn't mean you're good at being
Yeah.
in a relationship with him, right? So then now I'm misleading that you think everything is okay and it's not okay. At what point did you realize I am doing more damage to myself and to this relationship when I don't verbalize what I am feeling at any given moment?
Recently, I go back. I go.
It's
I go
okay.
back to recently.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, my wife, the first year of marriage, you couldn't have told me everything was great because that was what the persona that she was giving off. That's the persona that I was giving off. Hey, we all right. It wasn't until might have been in our second year of marriage. We just because we did premarital counseling and we like went back and just like talking about stuff. And I'm like, yeah, marriage is great. And my wife was like, I've been through hell this past year. Now I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
you surprised me with this. And she was like, because I never said anything didn't mean that things were okay. And I'm like, well, nigga, I ain't said nothing either. Because I thought we was okay.
Right.
I thought we
Mm,
was okay. But it wasn't until recently where I'm big on therapy.
mhm.
I'm big on being self-aware and not only taking accountability for my actions, but also trying to see how I can get better. Um, and it wasn't until in therapy, my therapist said to me, "Look, you can't continue this. I just want to make everybody else happy. What about your feelings? What about what you need? What about um what makes you happy? You'll burn yourself out trying to always make this person happy and you never once bring up what you need to be happy.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to find the smallest thing to drive you someplace else because you haven't verbalized, oh hey, I need this. Oh hey, could you do this? You're so tracked on doing it yourself. You're the problem solver. You're so one tracked on doing it yourself and looking out for other people. The default is people before you. And if you keep doing that, you're gonna end up emotionally spent and burnt out because you haven't gotten what you need.
So I love that we can have this conversation. Um, Two black men talking about therapy because I will
Yeah,
tell you, um, going to therapy was the second most significant thing I have ever done in my life. Knowing Jesus is the first,
hey,
and going to therapy, and not just going to therapy, but I was blessed to find the right person,
right.
right? And it has been the most evolving, significant relationship of my adult life,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that she did for me was that I could come there and she didn't care about my religion. She didn't care about my
Mm-hmm.
Jesus. She didn't care about my church. She didn't care about the bishop. She didn't care about none of that. None of those things were her concern as much as how I was processing and relating to those things. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I tell people when I talk about therapy was that when I went to therapy, I didn't know how to be honest, right?
Can I
You
right
ask,
quick, right
mhm,
quick, right quick? When I went to therapy, I was in the Tony Soprano space.
mhm,
Going there, not say nothing because it's like, why am I gonna go talk to a stranger?
yeah,
And I remember my therapist said to me, and this is what made me change my whole demeanor. I go there and I sit and be quiet. I sit and be quiet for an hour and change. And then like the third session, she goes, I get paid whether you talk or not.
right, yeah.
And that changed everything for me because I was like, yeah, you idiot, you just been wasting money for 3 sessions.
No, no. Here's my what my therapist hit me with about the third session. She was like, if you're not going to be honest, why are you here?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And then I had the thing, I was like, I don't know how to tell my story without protecting people in it,
Yeah,
right? I was telling something traumatic that happened to me, and I was telling it in such a way that lets them off the hook, right? She was like, "Well, do you see, like, that was pretty horrible, but yeah, you got to understand them." No, I don't have
yeah,
to understand
yeah, yeah,
no, like she was, she trying to like, she was right there and wouldn't let me off the hook, and I had to tell her like, I don't know how to be honest about the way I feel. I don't know how to be honest about the things that have happened to me because I was raised to be a good kid and protecting people you love. And yet sometimes the people you love do hurtful and harmful things to you. And
yeah,
even in that, you're still protecting them, right? So
yep,
I'm working it out in my head all these years that it was my fault. Well, they did this because I did this, or I wasn't this, or I wasn't that. And she was like, yeah, no, 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 no.
yeah,
Stop
yeah.
doing that.
You're bailing them
That's
out.
not true. And it's like, okay, she had to teach me how to talk about my feelings and then how to be honest. And it opened up a well in me. Like it was such a vent for all of the stuff that I had been carrying that I didn't even know I was carrying, right? We get so into performance mode, even with like, your father gift giving, or when you come to physical touch or sex or whatever it is, like I'm performing. My masculinity is based off performance, but my emotional self, that soul self, goes unnurtured, untouched, untapped, and it could leave us at a deficit. And then we wonder, well, why isn't this working out with me and her? It's like,
Yeah.
that's this is part of the reason, right? um and so I just talk a little bit. I mean, you have, was what we're doing, but how has it been transformative for you? um yeah.
It's been transformative,
Hey
a lot
everybody
of
that's
ways.
checking in. Samantha,
Hey,
hey.
y'all.
Crystal,
Samantha,
hey. Hey,
Crystal,
Lynette,
how
hi
y'all?
everybody. How are you all
Hey.
doing? Thanks for hanging
Um, it's been transformative for me because a previous relationship, and here's why I said tinkering, right? Previous relationship, I take my gift giving very serious. do this, I'll do that. My father would usually say to me, "Why are you spending this amount of money on one gift when you can get multiple gifts for the same amount?" One year, Valentine's Day, and this kind of scarred me about Valentine's Day until I finally had talked about it. One year, I found this teddy bear that had teddy bear that was holding a heart, and the heart had a little zipper pocket. And I'm like, "Oh, this is a cute teddy bear." I get the teddy bear, but keep in mind, I'm the gift giver. So Christmas happens, and now we're in New Year, Valentine's Day, just to set the story. I get the teddy bear, I give it to my then girlfriend, who takes the bear, unzips the heart, and she goes, "That's it? Just a bear?" And emotionally, and I'm like, "Did this?" I don't want to curse on your pod, but that was the reaction I had because I
Right.
thought the bear
Right.
was really, really good.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until talking about that experience with my therapist that she helped me figure out, even in my gift giving, I thought that that would be sufficient. And when she basically rejected my form of gift giving, I shut down because it wasn't about what trinket I could have put in the heart that would have made it better. My whole thing was I gave you the bear. Happy Valentine's Day. This is a symbol of me loving you. Um, that changed, didn't make me a menace, but it changed
Yeah.
how I
It turns you to the dark side.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
can, like, I've of course, like, I've had those same type of experiences, and I think sometimes what women miss is that really in everything we do, we are communicating, right?
Yes.
If I'm giving you a gift, I am communicating an emotion and feeling. If I protect you, if I'm there for you, this is the way I'm communicating my love. If we're making love, right, I am still talking to you. This is communication. Like, this is a language that you and I share between each other. And I think perhaps what we want is a balance, right? I want to be able to talk to you in all the ways that I need to talk to you, but I need you on the other side to hear what I am saying to you and respond to it. And I think when we're young men, when they don't respond, right? If they don't pat us on the head and give us that affirmation that perhaps we should have got somewhere else, right? That's not always their issues. This is me, right? I have unresolved, stuff that shouldn't be your responsibility. But when you reject me, right, then I quit. And I could quit and you don't even know I quit, right?
Yeah.
I could, and I can give you next year the same gift, but I'm not saying the same thing to you, right? This is just a motor. I'm obligated. So here, take it, right? Um, I struggled to get out of that, and I struggled to show up in my relationships. At first, it was difficult. I think more now, and this is a attribute of therapy, is a virtue of therapy for me, is that I am the best version of myself that I've ever been, right?
Yes.
That I am more in my body, I'm more aligned with what I'm feeling. I can verbalize it. I can be present. Um, and not run away from uncomfortable emotional spaces. Like, we can argue and it doesn't have to be personal, right? I can go back and forth with you and still love you, and I'm here. I can be your partner. And I couldn't do that when I was younger, right? It's You don't have those skills. But I'm interested now in, first of all, you made a decision to get married. I'm always interested in how we as men fall in love Like what it was it about her that allowed you to connect? And just because you love somebody doesn't mean you have to marry them. You made the decision to take it further and to marry someone. And I'm interested because we all connect, we all make that decisions for different reasons. I'm just interested in what were you thinking um, about her as a partner in your life and you wanting to make that type of commitment with her?
So two things. One, my father had passed before I got married. Years before I got married.
Mhm,
But I never spoke with anyone about marriage. Like you said, you went to a mentor and you spoke about marriage. I didn't speak to anyone
mhm,
about marriage. I'm an overthinker. So I literally played mental chess about marriage and do you want to be married? Do you not want to be married? This is before my wife even came into the picture. Literally playing mental chess with myself on marriage and all this other stuff. Never spoke to my father, any male for that matter, about marriage. When I got engaged, my godfather took me out and he said, "So I want to ask you, what's so special about her?" And my response to him was, because I know everybody else would just be sex.
mhm.
I knew in my mind that it was the mode that I had just come out of. It was one of, okay, I don't necessarily need a relationship. I'm single. I can have fun. I can do whatever have you. With my wife, it was completely different. And I said to him, I knew everybody else was just sex. And that's when it started to like I tell my wife all the time, when I realized that I started to fall in love with her, it scared me
Yeah,
because I'm thinking,
right.
oh, there's got to be a time frame. Oh,
Mhm.
you got to be dating for this long. And then you fall in love at this. But it was happening and I had no control over it. And I was like, what's going on? And
Scary.
that's when I knew that
Yeah.
when I didn't have control over it, that this might be bigger than, oh, a girl that you're stringing along because you're in a relationship and you're trying to see how things go. And once I got in checkmate mentally
Mhm.
about marriage was when I didn't tell anybody that I was gonna propose. I didn't tell anybody that I was looking for rings. I went to my mother and I said, where should I go to just start pricing how much stuff costs? Because even then, I didn't have marriage in my mind. I just wanted to put stuff in line. I wanted all the eggs in a row so I can be like,
Start
oh,
making
okay,
plans.
right.
Yeah.
I'm like Doctor Strange in a sense where I got to look at every outcome and be like, oh, okay, yeah. But I didn't tell anybody but my mom that I was wanted to just price rings. And
Mhm,
when I spoke to her about it, I'm like, oh, okay. But at that time, I'd already decided this is what I want to do.
mhm,
And me not speaking to anybody else was me basically saying, I don't want anybody to talk me out of it because I already made up my mind. Don't give me no other intel to think about. Don't make me second guess what I'm doing. So to avoid that, I didn't tell anyone because I knew, yeah, this is what I want to do. I had already gone through the chess by myself.
mhm,
So I had already gone through the, hey, marriage is cool, pros and cons myself.
mhm,
If you've seen the Wu Tang miniseries when RZA's in the park playing chess with himself, that was
mhm,
me. And it wasn't until I was able to, like I said, checkmate myself was when I realized, okay, you might be ready. And even then, I still didn't talk to anybody. The first time I had a conversation with somebody about marriage, I had already proposed. I had already proposed, and plans were already in motion. And it was like, well, trains left the station, so I can have the conversation now. But
yeah, we this is what we doing. This is what life is. So um I hate to ask you this because I feel like I'm putting you on the spot.
put me on the spot.
Okay. Is your wife the love of your life?
Yes, and I'm not just saying that because you put me on the spot.
No.
So for so for me, what my wife brought to the table that I didn't have in other relationships that I noticed was that she cared about my full person. It wasn't about what we can do, where we go. Her concern was how many times you've been to the doctor. When was your last dentist visit? Like there's a story of me when I was younger, staying up for almost 32 hours straight for no reason at all. My wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I came home from work and her and my mom were in my house, and I'm running on fumes at this point. And she was like, "You need to go to sleep." And I was like, "Sleep? I ain't going to sleep." And she picked up a Snapple bottle. That was when it was glass at the time. She picked up a Snapple bottle and in front of my mother, she was like, "If you don't go lay down, I'm gonna break this and cut you." My mother just let her have it. And I was like, you know what? I'll probably go lay down. And I'm thinking I'm not gonna really go to sleep. So I went and laid down. But that's a story that I tell all the time because it was that care for me, the individual. Didn't matter the dollar figure, whatever job you had, or the dollar signs that was attached to the gift. None of that mattered.
Yeah.
And I say, I quote movie lines and music all the time. And I used to tell my wife, the thing Ti says, and whatever you like, when he goes, you can ask for everything and get nothing, but you can ask for nothing and get everything.
Tip is profound.
Well, I mean, but that was
So
the notion.
yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that what really causes us to connect and to be able to make those decisions as men has nothing to do with sex. It has nothing to do with performance and all the other things. It is that whenever we connect with one another, there's a safe space between us where like it's just you and me, right?
Yeah,
And we care for one another, we are giving for one another, and we look into each other's eyes. And I don't care how mad you make me, I look into your eyes and know I'm supposed to be with you, right? That kind of knowing. And I think if you don't have that, if you get married and you connect with someone for any other reason than that, right? Whatever reason that is going to fall short and that's going to fail you. If you don't have, oh, this is my person, this is the absolute love of my life, and whatever comes against us, whatever we have to work through, we're going to get through it because this is where I'm supposed to be with you and you're supposed to be with me, right?
I tell
And
my
out
wife,
of that comes, huh?
I tell my wife all the time, if we had kids before marriage, I would have never forced you into marriage because we just had kids.
Mm-hmm.
If we not really connected and we had a kid before marriage, that wouldn't make me want to marry you more. I know that's going to sound weird to some people,
No,
but
no.
I'd rather us have the connection and say we're married for the right reason and not just because we have a kid involved.
Yeah,
I tell her that all the time.
yeah. I'm of the opinion, and I play my role in church. However, I play my role in church. I'm not parents. Being a parent, siring children is not a good enough reason to get married
No,
because you can make great parents but be horrible partners for one another.
yeah,
Like those are two different roles you're playing. And so let me ask you this: how old were you when you got married?
25, 26.
25, 26. Okay. I got married at 22. So I had you I got you beat.
Okay, all right.
Right. And so I bring that up because when we're raised in church, right? We're raised to flee you for lust and run away from this, and they teach us how to run away from everything, right? Um and so you want to be saved and want to be right, and so the next thing is to get married, right? That's just what they tell us to do. It wasn't like the church carved out for us a way for us to be single and just be okay.
Can I tell you one of the realest things someone in church said to me? It was somebody I had a really good relationship with.
Hmm.
I was on my way to college, and in church they would teach you, oh, well, you don't have sex until you get married. And I was like, yeah, all right.
Mhm.
The realest thing the realest thing I ever been told to in a church. Um, Brother came up to me, and I call him my uncle, but he's not really my uncle. I call him before I went away. He came to me, he put a pack of condoms in my hand, and said, "You know what? I'm not dumb. I know you may be out there experiencing life, and I'd rather you be safe than you be out here reckless."
Yeah.
And that one conversation, because they're preaching over the pulpit, wait until you're married to have sex and all this other stuff. And here this individual was, it was like so down to earth to me and spoke to me
Right.
on my level and
Right.
said, "Hey, look, if you're going to be out here, at
Yeah.
least protect yourself."
Yeah.
Which is
I
probably why I was stealing condoms from CVS when I grew up later on. But that's
I want to tell you a condom story in a minute. Remind me to tell you a condom story. But I tell you this. My mom was strictly Pentecostal. My dad was like a Baptist, liberal Baptist. So my mom was like, my mom was the mother that came in the room at night, anointed us, while we would sleep, prayed over us, that kind of stuff, bind the devil. My dad was more kind of liberal, and I remember when I turned 16. This is not the condom story that I need to tell you, but this is the first condom story. My father was 16 and said, "I know you're saved. I know you love the Lord. You're singing in the choir and da 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 da. But I know, you're gonna get hot."
yeah,
So he gave me a condom and said, "Don't bring me no babies." That was the talk.
yeah,
That
yeah. That was the extent of it. Yeah,
was the talk. Don't bring me no babies. Here's a condom, and he gave me $10. Right? The $10 was for if I was somewhere and I was stranded, I had enough money to get in the cab or to make a phone call for him to
that's
come
what I
get
can
me or
get.
something.
Yeah.
Right? That was a survival kit for it was the survival kit. Okay. And here's the thing about the condom. If he gave me that at 16, it stayed in my wallet for the next 3.5, 4 years. By the time I took it, like you remember, because I don't know about you, I had I got my first wallet. If you put a condom
The
in there,
condom stayed in your wallet until you're ready to use it.
there's nothing for me to do. Like I'm trying to find is to use it. I don't. I wasn't very outgoing. I was a very shy kid. And by the time 18 or 19 comes and it's time to use the condom, by the time I take it out, it had melted.
Thing done turned to dust.
I can't win out here. This is absolutely cannot catch a break. It's absolutely horrible. But you mentioned CVS, and I had this experience. I had to be 19, 20, experiment and had a girlfriend. And I needed a condom. And of course I am not I don't I've never bought condoms before, but what I want this was the time in life where they used to have the condoms behind the counter, right?
Yes.
Where they weren't out like where, accessible or anything like that. So I would go. I remember I spent about an hour in Walgreens or something like that because when I went to the service desk to buy the condom, there was this older woman there.
Ain't that the worst? Ain't that the worst?
Like I don't know. I can't remember if she was out in the car or I was on my way to her. I don't know. I was like, I am stuck puking behind the aisle trying to. I can't. I can't. I can't. But I don't know what to do. It didn't dawn on me to go to another store or something like that. I was like, I can't. Oh, I can't. Like that's like my mother back there. I can't buy a condom
Yeah.
from her. And eventually, she saw me or something lurking because I would go around looking at stuff, pretending like I don't, I don't know what I don't know what my strategy was. I have no idea. I'm just. She looked at me and she perceived what what I wanted, and she talked to me so sweetly. She said, "Son, you don't have to be ashamed about protecting yourself. Like what you're doing is responsible, and you need to be able to go into any store, and if this is what you need to be able to get it knowing you're doing the right thing." And that little moment of her not judging me,
Yeah.
her like affirming my humanity and even understanding, I didn't want to buy it from her because I was in some way respecting her because
Yeah.
of how we saw adults. And she was just so kind to me and gentle to me in that moment that I don't know why I'm telling you this story. I don't know why, like,
We're
but
here.
it
We're
was
here.
just, it was just one of those moments where I think you're coming into adulthood as a teenager and the world is opening up for you and you're trying to find a safe way to be adult, even if that doesn't line up with everything our parents wanted us to do. And my problem with the church was is that everything you're telling me not to do, y'all doing it. We just don't know y'all doing
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And so you get a little older and you see the hypocrisy and see the tensions. And Mother Mary Jones Smith, you know, coming real hard down on all of the teenagers in the youth department, but we ain't seen Brother Jones or Brother Smith,
Yeah.
right? And and like you got six kids and half these kids look different from one another, and
Yeah.
like one of these kids we don't know where they came from, like you got a story too, so everything you're telling me not to do you've already done before, to which you should know, like, well, you just saying don't do it is not going it's not like a pill to do it. You have to kind of walk us through how to safely become an adult, right? And
That was my 21st birthday conversation with my father that Saturday morning was, well, you didn't just go from being born to a bishop. Like there was an in between. So
right.
you can't be mad at me for stuff that I'm doing in my knucklehead ishness, just made up a word.
Right.
When you yourself have a past that we haven't gotten into. So when you're ready to talk about your past and we can put that on the table, then we can have a better conversation about my future. Because you can't just chastise me for living
Right.
when you lived.
And it's like when they don't do that, then it becomes like, well, my mistakes are so foreign to you, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm the only person in humanity who ever made this mistake, and you don't allow me the space to be like, you know what, you're gonna make these mistakes. I made these mistakes. You can recover. It's not the end of the world. This is how you pick yourself up from your mistakes. This is how you're gonna make this mistake again, right? You're gonna learn from it. Like those kinds of things weren't always available to us. Look, I'm gonna let you go because you're at a function, and I don't want to keep you from your family. Um,
Part three. My wife is already going to kill me. I told her to charge Patrick D'Anzel Schaefer.
it,
I
it's
told her, your whole government.
it's Dionzel, but I appreciate that.
D'Anzel,
I appreciate
D'Anzel,
that.
it's the A. It's silent. The A is
Yeah.
silent.
Listen, before we'll do this again. We'll have another conversation. Here's I'm gonna give you five quick questions, and
All right.
then I'll let you go. I'm trying to remember the five questions off the top of my head because I don't have my notes in front of me. Um,
No, New York love is not defined by matching Timbs, uh, matching do-rags. That's not one.
are you
That's not.
sure? Are you
I'm
sure?
positive.
All right,
I'm
okay.
positive.
Where do you find joy?
Oh, this is gonna be a very cliche answer, but my joy comes from making people happy, making people smile, making people laugh. I I think you and I connect because you and I have similar humor where if it's a solemn moment, we can say something to break that solemnness that'll cause people to smile. It'll make people chuckle when they don't want to.
Yeah.
I feel like we're the type of people that will get people in trouble because we'd make them laugh in times they're not supposed to laugh. Like this ain't time to be funny, but here it is. We're gonna interject something
We're going to
where we can
find
just
some joy in this
yeah,
misery some kind of
yeah,
way. Yeah. Yeah. That's a gift.
it is. It really
Um,
is.
what do you know about love now that you didn't know before?
That love is not walking up to a woman with money and saying, "Now stop." Um,
Right.
that love is not primarily based on what you can do for somebody,
Mm.
but it's the old Chris Rock joke that is so true. You looking in the mirror every day and saying, it's not about you, it's about what this individual wants. Not into contradiction and saying you're giving up what you need, but
Mhm.
in order to experience love at its finest, you came and preached to my part. So yeah, Christ Himself was a
Mhm.
server, right?
Mhm.
So it's denying yourself for this other person to say, hey, look, I understand I'm with me 24 hours a day. I wake up, I see me in the mirror, hey, me. But it's saying, hey, it ain't about you right now. What can you do for them?
Um, what has love taught you?
Love. I'm sorry, Samantha actually not believe in love at first sight. No, I think they need to walk by again.
I'm
To
sorry.
answer
Answer. What did you say?
I said, do I believe in love at first sight? I said, no, I think they should walk by again. Um,
We believe in the second sight. Like the second time. It's the first time, no, but that second time you walk by
the
me,
second
bro.
time, yeah, you
I
might
get
have
it.
caught me.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Love has taught me that you need to be selfless when you love.
Mm.
Selfless and not selfish. That's what love has taught me.
Okay. Last question. What makes a good lover?
Uh,
And I want
my
you to give me
purse.
I want you to give me an honest answer because I know people come on to answer that question and they get all ethereal about it. I just want something different from you. I don't know what I want. I just
All right. So for me, what makes a good lover? That was the question.
Mhm.
Is someone who pays attention. So even in the even when we're laying horizontal, if I'm kind of coaching or shifting you one way
Mhm.
and you catch it and you're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
But when you pay attention down to stuff like that, like if you know I like for pepperoni pizza and you bring me a slice of pepperoni pizza on a random day, it's picking up on those things for me.
Mhm.
But it's being intentional about what you're picking up. Don't
Mhm.
just do it because, oh, well, I think I saw you eat pepperoni pizza one time and I
Mhm.
figured you might, but no,
Mhm.
you take note that every time I may order it, this is what I get. You're intentional about how it is you're perceiving my needs. And without me having to necessarily remind you,
Mhm.
you you're there. You're on it.
It's like muscle memory. You don't have
Yes.
to, right? So that's a great answer. And shout out to pepperoni pizza and pepperoni pizza lovers everywhere for all of.
And you know what's crazy? I order my pizza with pause, pepperoni and sausage. I never do just pepperoni. I can never just plain pizza,
Yeah,
no, pepperoni, no.
you need to
Pepperoni and
mix it up.
sausage, and I'm all right.
Mix
You
it
gotta
up a
mix it
little
up.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We like our pizza the way we like our pizza. I want the pizza that I want to eat, not the pizza that you want for me. You see?
That me and my wife have to order two separate pies because she likes one way, I
Right.
like the other. There hasn't yet been a compromise. Keep praying for us
I'll keep
because it's expensive ordering two pies.
it. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You took some time away from your family. I'm gonna let you go and hang out with your family. Tell us about the podcast real quick and where we could find it. And if people wanted to connect with you on social media, where can they find you?
Pod is called What the Face, as Patrick referred. No, no, Whatever Face podcast. I'm on every platform. The link is in my Instagram and my Facebook page. Instagram is Hollywood 1026, and my Facebook is Corey, aka Hollywood. If you're trying to reach me there, but Whatever Face podcast, the whole premise of Whatever Face is that we have water cooler conversations with any and everybody, and it's a place where people can feel comfortable talking about literally whatever. Music, there's no, even though I'm a PK, it's sort of kind of, George tells me all the time, I have a heavy brunch spirit upon me. So my pod is like, I just want people to be themselves, because that's what I feel like I never got from the church, was uh, the provision to just be you. So for me, it's, I just want people to be themselves, be free, let loose, and come up and have conversations about any and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great space. I think you're doing amazing work because you're so good at it. And
Thank
I've
you.
just been riveted by some of the conversations that you've had. And so please find that podcast, everybody. If you haven't, subscribe to it, and in your time incorporate it. I think you'll greatly enjoy it. Thank you, Corey. I love you, brother.
Thank you.
I'm glad
I
to
love
know
you,
you.
man.
Glad we met. We'll do this again. You know, we're going to do this again. And
Any
so
and every time, I'll change the decor next time. It won't
it's all
be
this
New
works.
York.
You in New York? Yeah, no, it's all good. You in Harlem, so you know it's all good. But
Now you
thank
gave
you.
my location out the second time. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Appreciate you. Second time is this
You
time.
said it
Thank you.
wasn't. You said it wasn't a thing. All right, everybody. You all take care. Be blessed. Be back. We'll be back next week with another great episode. I'll talk to you a little later. All right. Bye bye. Wait a minute. Hold on.
Now you don't want to end it. Now